How is again? It's Monday, 27th of the 28th, the Corona Chronicles, social isolation, lockdown, fascinating period of collective and personal enlightenment and education that we're all getting here. It was a lot of fun yesterday, accidentally setting up the chat thing during the video and talking about music and stuff like that. Maybe you guys seem to enjoy it too. So maybe like once every couple of weeks we'll do like something like that, like a caller type thing. It'd be fun. It's nice for all of us to like kind of, for me to actually chat with you in real time. It felt very, what's the word? Yeah, bonding. That's how it felt. I felt like, the tribe are in session, and it's a nice feeling, as if we were in an ancient pagan tribe gathered around a circle or something like that. I had that vibe about it. Now, yeah, so the latest things on this now is that, let me look. This is a time of magic. Remember that. This is a time when the spiritual forces are very close. Everyone is reporting this. Everyone is reporting the close proximity of the spiritual world or the unseen realms with this one, and that's I totally expected that. And this is why I told you at the beginning, if you're involved in any kind of magic and even any kind of mysticism, but magic and mysticism are very close anyway. I mean, magic was central to spiritual traditions until probably, probably only 500 years ago. It was quite central. And even some monastic orders, it's still very, in Catholicism, though, it's still quite prevalent. Operate like monastic orders operate outside the direct control of the Vatican. The I was I had made a prediction that when an octopus, and we've been doing the octopus sorcery and octopus chaos paganism on this ongoing experiment that we're all involved in together. And I said that, I don't know if I said it on a video, but I definitely said it a few times on Facebook, that I'm waiting for an octopus to appear in the canals in Venice, because they'd shown like other things like jellyfish and a few other things had been seen in the canals, and because they were so clear again. And sure enough, yes, a video came in of an octopus in the canals in Venice, and Italian scientists were shocked and amazed. They don't know how it got there. They said there was a suggestion that it had escaped from a fish market or something like that, but they don't sell live octopuses at fish markets in Italy. That's an Asian thing, not an Italian thing. And so we know why it came there. We know what happened. I knew it'd be. I said to myself that it would be a significant moment in all this stuff that's going on in the world right now, whatever is going on, because it's kind of hard to know what's going. Like, okay, we have a virus, but we've comets and we've got other things, but it would be a significant moment, a turning point. And sure enough, just after it was filmed, the whatever it was put on the mass media, it I think Sweden. No, I think certain. Well, it's now common knowledge that Sweden not having a lockdown worked, and even the normies, unless they're really completely brainwashed, which some of them are. We'll talk about why they are in a minute. Especially ones on social media are, they're accepting it. I'm seeing it everywhere now, not even from normies. How come it didn't have a problem? It wasn't a problem in Sweden. And this kind of thing. We still got a few sites. Oh, way more died. No, it shouldn't have been way more died. According to your government, your mass media, and your bureaucrats, that this corona, use your own words, was a ruthless killer, which killed without discrimination. So therefore, and if it wasn't for the lockdown, everyone would be dying. So why isn't there several million now less people not in Sweden? Why are millions of Swedes not dead? Why are there even Swedes left? Remember, we were told there has to be a lockdown, otherwise everyone will die. Everyone will get it and everyone will die. And how come Sweden hasn't been depopulated? and wiped out. Now this is going to be the thing that's going to really damage them, because this should not have happened. And I can guarantee you the reason they're keeping this lockdown going as long as they are is the politicians, particularly in this country, are looking for an exit strategy of some kind, or some kind of diversion. And they'll do something stupid, believe me, when people find out that there's no jobs for them to go back to because the public sector, the private sector has been wiped out. Small businesses have been wiped out. And you're going to have that situation. Now, Eve, right now they're ruling the normies with fear. But they're starting to see now that the Swedish thing is, there's real questions that need to be answered there. Now, they haven't really been asked sternly or accusatory yet, but they will when some middle class guy in Ireland or England or some other country that was locked down has a job as a consultant in a company that no longer exists, and therefore has no longer a job and no longer the way it means to pay his mortgage and have a status in society. Then they will ask the questions. How on second to Sweden they still have all this stuff? And the politicians know this is happening, but they'll do something stupid. They'll have a special day for heroes or something, a parade. Honest to God, they will. And who'll be in the parade? Be doctors, nurses, and civil servants, and people who work in the public sector whose jobs are safe, regardless of the outside world economy. And it will be seen as an insult and a mockery to the new prolies, which would be the people who literally don't have a job to go back to. It's as simple as that. And so they'll do something stupid like that. I can see, especially in this country, I can see it. You can already see how, like, even in Ireland now, PR spin machine marketing companies have been brought in to make the government look like they're in control during the Rona thing and stuff like that. It's the health minister with his sleeves rolled up because he's getting in there, that kind of like bullshit, and that's they want to pure Tony Blair carry on. And like when Tony Blair, remember Tony Blair carried the electric guitar in the case into 10 Downing Street, and the sheeps and the normies nearly had an orgasm. He was the rock and roll prime minister because he was carrying a guitar. Spin doctors told him to carry a guitar case into 10 Downing Street. This is the kind of world that the politics in this country particularly are still very much trapped into. Also Boris Johnson, I don't even know if he had the Rona, and the whole thing of him rising from the dead on Easter and everything. It all seems so terribly contrived, but. Your job is not to get upset by this, but I keep maintaining this. Your job is to observe and find tools and opportunities for you to grow as a person, to build your own secure reality tunnel, in order for you not to be sucked into this. This is why I'm making the videos. This is what I'm trying to do. It's not always easy, but I want if you're looking to do the same thing as me, the idea of these videos is that's the reason for it. Now, so New Zealand has said they've eradicated it, but they had a very strict lockdown there, mainly because they've got a diverse population over two big islands. So it might have been easier to micromanage the situation there. But Texas is apparently opening up, and the Czech Republic's opening up, Austria, and I believe Hungary is planning on opening up. And even Boris Johnson in the newspaper headline I saw in town today when I went for my groceries, it said it's time to get the machine working again. So that's it's coming, and it's right after this whole octopus portent, we're going to call it. I knew things would make a big move in the direction of the social isolation and the pandemic lockdown being stopped, ending. And you hear people are still thinking, I'm hearing 3 months, I'm hearing 6 months, I'm hearing 6 weeks, I'm hearing 8 weeks. It will happen very quickly, very quickly. And even the government here said something like the final decision will be touch and go. So it's like, and what they're really worried about here, the government, is people finding out there's no economy left in Ireland. That's been destroyed while Sweden still has an economy and jobs. And that's their biggest terror in this country, the politicians, not the virus. They were talking about how they were doing a great job, and they're managing the crisis gave them a taste for government again and all this stuff. But what was the fly in the ointment? What was the fly in the ointment of all this was Sweden. And who would have guessed that? Who, of all the countries in the world, a country that's probably the depressing place I've ever visited. Um, it's got beautiful nature and everything like that, and picture postcards, towns and cities, but it's an awful society. The people that like the whole thing of them standing, they're already not socially isolated. They're going to a restaurant there, and there'll be two couples at a table there all night eating food, and they won't even talk to each other. It's just a dreadful, miserable society, and living in fear of maybe unfortunately acknowledging the humanity in another human being. I'm not putting down Swedes now. I know lots of cool Swede people, and so please don't think I'm putting down Swedish people together. I'm talking about or even as a whole. I'm talking about the society that has been integrated there through your endless decades of social engineer to make people in the Nordic countries in general worship their government. I mean, I've seen things like people had written about press releases from the Danish government, and and you see Danes talking about their government like it was a band. Say the Danish government had its budget, its new fiscal budget for the year, and it said it's put so much money into childcare, so much money into this, that, and the other taxes for carbation, and the Danes writing about the new government policy in the same way a fan of a band might write about a new album that their favorite band is coming out with. It's truly strange. And this is because the loss of the spiritual identity. And that's what this video is about. When when a society has lost a spiritual identity in terms of a religion, now I'm even talking even in terms of an organized religion, that need is still necessary in the people. They may say it's not, but it is. Hence why you had in communist countries, they would, people like Pol Pot, Lenin, and uh, Chairman Mao, Stalin, etc., were worshipped by gods as like gods by the people, because by the proletariat, because they had to, they still had that need to feel a spiritual identity and connection, and the communists knew this, and they did that, and this has always been a huge problem for the control system. Now, the situation in say Scandinavia is, well, they had Lutheranism there, right? So Lutheranism, uh, pretty dark, backward form of Judaism. It didn't last, and it fell out of favor with the population, and particularly in Sweden and Denmark, but also to a lesser degree in Norway, the population then began to worship the government. So in countries like Sweden and Denmark, the government is God, and people worship the government as their God. And this has allowed the government to socially engineer people into being compliant. It's really interesting. In Britain, the same thing happened. The Church of England had lost its power, and people were not interested in religion anymore. And so God became the NHS. The NHS is the state religion of the UK. British people in general worship the NHS like a god, and it's encouraged that way. And I saw a thing, and someone sent me a picture of a house in Blackburn in England, in Lancashire, and somebody had done up the front of their house the way you have nutcases at Christmas who do up the front of the house with all the decorations, so everyone in the neighbourhood can go, oh, look at the amazing, they those types, had basically turned their house into what looked like a Hindu or a Catholic shrine, like for the NHS. So it's the COVID religion, the branch Covidians. It's very real. But in England, the church is the NHS. In Ireland, since when Catholicism died, we have a spiritual vacuum here. And I would say it's hard to know what people worship. I'd say the religion here is British soccer teams. The Irish they worship British soccer corporations, particularly Liverpool, Man United, as gods. They're not football team. They worship them as like gods, and that filled this spiritual vacuum in them. Makes them very easy to control this kind of thing. All you have to do is, like politicians, as I say, appear in a TV show saying you like such and such a Man United player, and many Irish will vote for him because he's endorsing, he's aligning himself with their God. I mean, this is the world you live in, and so on. Now then the Rona thing happened, right? And we have this lockdown, and people are in terror. You go to the normie message boards; they're absolutely in terror. They're absolutely, oh, I don't want, I'm afraid I'm going to come home from work with the disease and kill my wife and kids. And everyone going, look, don't, my mental health is falling asunder. So the state religions of the day don't really handle that. So this is because they're not integrated, our societies no longer integrate the shadow of society. What's the shadow of the society now? Terrors and fears regarding an invisible enemy, as Trump constantly calls it. In the United States, the God is patriotism. The jingoism and patriotism is the state religion of the United States. But 4th of July and all that stuff. But so the people they have these tremendous fears. I mean, we're remarkably relaxed, like you guys and me here, compared to many people out there. They're literally in terror. They're in terror and still are, and particularly the more middle class ones, and they literally think they're going to bring the virus home and kill their wives and kids and stuff like that, and they're tormented and they're not able to sleep at nights because of it and things like this. And so that's the shadow has not been integrated. They're living in fear of the Rona when they should be learning to live with the Rona, and that's when the shadow, because the whole pandemic thing is the collective shadow of so many societies now. But that shadow is not being integrated by saying it's a fact of life, it's here, we have to get on, people will die just like any other pandemic, and that's the end of it. But because our governments forced us to choose the coward's panacea, not trusting herd immunity and trying to win easy votes by keeping as many old people alive because they're constant, they're the ones that keep politics going, party politics going, really. And so by catering to the Silver Panthers, they have basically created a shadow in societies like Ireland, like the UK, like North America, and others, where the shadow has not been integrated and become a terrifying spectre for so many people. Now, again, with Carl Jung, he always says during a time when a society is under great psychological stress, it imagines phantoms or beings and lights in the sky, because the fears and the neuroses of the society are transferred into strange lights in the sky and general Fortean events. And they're also very heavily involved in dreams. Hold on a second. Now, these dreams are, again, a result of the shadow not being integrated. And in society, not you maybe find yourself, and the dreams are working with you, trying to help you. But unfortunately now, and there's widespread acknowledgement that everything from National Geographic to Newsweek to everything, Psychology Today, talking about how people are having strange, even the Irish papers, having strange dreams during the whole Rona lockdown thing. And of course, they're putting the wrong meanings into their heads, because you can't analyze a dream straight away. You have to see a recurring pattern after a while, and that's your subconscious mind trying to help you. Your subconscious mind, we call it your daemon, whatever you want to call it, is trying to help you during a REM sleep to solve problems in this reality. But then we go to like Freudian psychologists, psychiatrists, and they completely destroy people by giving them completely wrong meanings of what that stuff means. So when that's not being done either, that's when the phantoms and the visions appear. Now, this is when people start to project Fortean, or maybe set off for pre-existing Fortean events. The largest sighting of the Loch Ness Monster has just been seen in Scotland. Now, we have that concurrent with Boleskine House. Now, to a certain extent, we made the octopus a kind of a purposeful, proactive totem in that regard. Although we weren't driven by neuroses, we were driven by more a sense of the bewilderment at the stupidity we were seeing around us in society, and the fears of our neighbours and stuff like that, and things like having to social distance and stuff, and this kind of thing, where because we understand these things. You've heard those you listen to my talks for all these years know that I talk about this stuff all the time. So we were ready for it. We understood it. We understand the concept of the symbolism of these animal totems, such as the octopus appearing in Venice. And rather than it being seen as freaky, we see it as it's a validation of the process that we're involved in. We're on the right path. Now, that's always like synchronicities. Are you being told you're on the right path, and pay attention. Don't see anything as mundane, ordinary, or a happenstance or coincidence. So, sure enough, in Ireland, on a normie message board, I'm hearing people saying, "Are you hearing strange noises in the sky?" Now, and then literally the board lit up with people saying, "Yeah, I heard them called sky quakes." Uh, Now, these things could be a lot more common than they normally are. We don't hear them because of air traffic noise. But literally, there are sky quakes all over Ireland now, and people reporting them. And they're trying to say, oh, it's tectonic plates and stuff like that. But there's very little tectonic activity in Ireland. It's to do with consciousness and the mind, because they were after 9/11 there was constant videos of sky quakes on YouTube for years, just strange banging and humming and booms in the sky. And this again is the projection, the Jungian projection. It may also be related to the cosmic changes going on, like the earth, the world is being battered by a flare from the sun, and we see that at the moment. The magnetosphere is taking a hell of a hammering at the moment. Could be related to that, but it's interesting how it's so localized in Ireland. So a friend of mine in Cornwall in England said he heard, well, I shouldn't say Cornwall is England, but in Cornwall, said that he heard one too as well. I've heard a hum from the sky, but I've never heard that big bang and these big crashing noises. And so I think there's a lot of that is to do with this transference of the fears and anxieties of these normies on these normie boards, who are now starting to realize when this thing's over, I might not have a job, after the fear of the coronavirus itself had passed through them. And Mothman sightings in the US were very prevalent leading up to this, including some very classic ones in Maryland, and a whole slew of them in Chicago. And the Mothman thing is very much related to social anxiety. And I know they make a big deal about the Silver Bridge one in Point Pleasant in West Virginia, the famous event in the 60s. I think the one aspect of that is never fully spoken about is the Vietnam War. Those things happened right in the middle of the Vietnam War, when suddenly the average American who was told that America is always a good country, fights for the goodness of others, which is fundamentally true at the basic level, in terms of desire. That suddenly find that they're the bad guys, and their army is losing to 14-year-old girls with lampshades on their heads. And so I often wonder how much of that neuroses of the Vietnam War played in the heads of the whole Mothman thing there, especially the whole thing around Point Pleasant of the TNT area. It was also preceded by strange lights in the sky. And now the Pentagon has just released footage from very, very good footage of UFOs right in the middle of all this stuff all of a sudden. And the videos are very interesting and very good, and exactly what I did see a UFO a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago now, one Saturday afternoon coming out of work, flying over Sligo Bay. It was a plasma white egg, as way I would describe it. But it felt like I was looking at an animal, not a machine. And these videos that have been released by the Pentagon, they look like animals. They look like animals. They don't look like machines. And even though they can move at incredible speeds and everything, And then at the same time, you have Trump saying yesterday, like, he's open minded about aliens and things like that, but doesn't have any one hard way belief or another. The space army. Like, the time was, there's something going on. Yes, the virus is the real thing, but there's something. We've been hearing about disclosure for a long time, and people have this notion that disclosure will be about mechanical spaceships from other galaxies. I think there's something more to it. It's to do with a crossing of the veil and other dimensions or something. I don't know what it is, but we're living in incredible times. Absolutely, we have a front row seat to this. We've seen celebrities. I mean, I saw Ellen DeGeneres' thread on Twitter yesterday, talking about something about her lockdown bullshit, and she was absolutely savaged in the comments on Twitter. Uh, the hatred and dislike for her, but so many of them had to do with Podesta Pizza and those that whole bunch, the Podesta brothers, and that pizza place and the menus with the strange names on them. I was amazed how huge that thing had become and taken off. Now, apparently it's to do with the QAnon thing, which I haven't paid any attention to. I know nothing about that. But it's amazing that that's all mainstream now. And it definitely was. The Podesta pizza thing was definitely creepy. There was something really sinister going on there. But unfortunately, I think they deliberately leaked it to the truthers, who, as usual, went screaming and shouting and wrecked it. But it's like Epstein. It's up there in terms of its ability to be analysed and proven. We don't know how it happened with Andrew Breitbart after he slagged off the Podesta brothers or whatever. He suddenly dies out of the blue. Now, like he was Clinticide, and yeah. So then Trump started talking about this. We're living in remarkable times, and take nothing for granted. Um, and that's basically watch and observe. But I do think with the sighting of the octopus in Venice the other day that we've reached a pivotal point. From this point on, everything will be about going back to work and the ending of the lockdowns. But I'm sure they will have other tricks up their sleeves. And again, there's a wider agenda out there behind this that we're not being told about, and we're having to try and figure it out piecemeal. Okay? Peace. Love you. Over and out.